Well, it's Monday afternoon and we've been struggling with some technological difficulties, but thank God we've overcome them. And now we can talk to Pat McArt. How are you, Pat?
Jude? My technical skills are such that I turned it off and on again and it seems to be working. That's
snap, snap as they say.
Or the old one, give it a kick. Go ahead, Jude.
Yeah. Switch it on, switch it off. Switch it off and switch it on, rather. Okay, Pat, we'll go down to business immediately then. The first item I have here is one about the UK and the dangers that the UK may disintegrate. Now, somebody who's appeared on the scene talking about it at some length is Gordon Brown. And he was last seen, you remember, whenever Scotland was in peril at the time of the 2014 referendum on independence. And Brown weighed in heavily in favour of maintaining Scotland as a part of the UK. What do you think of his intervention now?
Well, Jude, I think Scotland has become totally disenchanted. Britain has been ruled by a Tory elite, the old Eton guys, for a long time. And they are totally out of touch with what's happening north of the border. In fact, they're totally out of touch with what's happening in a lot of places. This sort of the David Cameron, Boris Johnson, Osborne, all these guys all went to Eton and all these elite schools, and they haven't a notion about what's going on in Scotland. Gordon Brown, it's only Scotland is the only country I know in the world which has been offered its independence and refused. And I think there are lots of people in Scotland saying, particularly after Brexit, that basically Brexit is an English move, not a Scottish move. It's not good for Northern Ireland. It's not good for Wales. And it's not good. It's good for the guys, who are making fortunes and the old English. It's not good for the common people or the working people. But that's the way it's been playing out. And it's basically English nationalism, Brexit. That's what it is.
Well, Gordon
Brown, I'd say, is speaking for that old style, well-off sort of Labour right. But I don't think he's speaking for the guys unemployed in Glasgow and Edinburgh.
Well, he's pretending to. He's pretending to be speaking up for the Scottish people and the Welsh people, whatever about us. And he's saying, that Boris Johnson would want to pay more attention and not be just acting without reference to Scotland and without reference to Wales, first of all. Yeah. And that he sees the answer as lying with more coordination with, as what he calls the regions, and an implication that the region should have more power. Now, I have got serious doubts about that, I think that when I was at school, a history teacher used to say, once a tyrant begins to liberalize, that's the point at which he's finished. Yeah. Because when he holds a tight grip, okay, but once he starts getting nice, he's finished. He won't put up with it. Now, the answer, the reason Scotland has got an assembly and Wales, or Scotland's got a parliament, is that they thought that would calm them down and sort of kill Scottish nationalism. Yeah. Hasn't worked out that way. More people today in Scotland want independence, or say they want independence, than ever. Now, Gordon Brown's saying the answer maybe lies with more coordination between London and Scotland and so on. Do you think will that work? Will people take any heed of Gordon Brown now, I wonder?
I think at this stage he's a bit of a busted flush, but he was a major figure. Remember Tony Blair referred to him having the big clunking fist. He was the Chancellor for 10 years, and he was a substantial figure. But I think people in Scotland, Jude, they've seen a lot of things. Brexit was not their interest, and London, Westminster didn't give a monkeys about what their interests were. So I think there's a lot of resentment. And see, when you're taken for granted for a long time, and I see Sturgeon is saying that. By the way, I'll follow on another thought. Osborne last week wrote a fairly substantial piece about the breakup of the UK, the former Cameron's Chancellor, and when she said Northern Ireland is already economically on its way to United Ireland and the politics will follow. And he basically said nobody cares, but he did say he would care about Scotland. And by the way, and a great bit of democracy stood out of the Donald Trump playbook. He said the best advice he could give Boris Johnson was, even no matter a 50+% of people in Scotland want or don't give it to them because it'll break up the union. In other words, the hell with Scottish democracy.
Really? Did Osborne say that?
Yeah, read the piece. That's what he said.
Oh, God. All right. Well, I know that he said, and I've always maintained this, that there's a link between the economic unity and political unity. And he's saying Ireland effectively now is becoming more and more integrated as a single unit, north and south, economically. And as you say, he adds at the end of the piece, the politics will follow. But let me read you out what Gordon Brown said. He said, you've got not only the Scottish First Minister, but you've got the regional mayors saying they're not consulted or listened to. You've got the Welsh First Minister saying their letters are not even replied to by Boris Johnson. You've got no mechanism, no forum for coordinating the regions and nations. And I think that the public are fed up. I think he's right in the last bit.
Yeah, I think they are fed up. But it's very hard to explain, And when you watch these guys, I've watched several programs about this whole elite circle that the Boris Johnson elite, Dominic Cummings, the guy who goes for a 60 or 80 mile drive, you say, to check out his eyesight. Like one of the stupidest, most sort of inane excuses. And the insulting thing was that, and contemptuous thing was that he expected people to believe that. That's what I think's pissing off a lot of people, that they're not taking this crap anymore.
Do you think, this is something, Pat, I often wondered, do you think that the English see the Scots and the Welsh and the Irish as being sort of funny / odd, a wee bit funny, a wee bit odd?
I thought you were going to use the term inferior, because I genuinely...
that would be part of it, actually, but
yeah.
They think there's something wrong with them because they're not English.
We're charming little leprechauns and, funny little people who like music. And we have our little charming little bits.
That's too harsh. Not all English people think that way.
No, of course they don't. But like, I have an English daughter now. But I sometimes think that the sort of the Churchill types, the old of colonels and all the rest of it. This sort of I don't know what's the term, the view of the Irish and the Scots. We're Celts. We're mad. We drink too much and we don't pay. We don't have the discipline, and we don't send all the kids off to boarding school and send other kids off to India and whatever.
That's right. I think it's this notion. I honestly think it is something English people find it hard to get their heads around. That people, there's something not right that they can't speak in English accents. And there's something not right by them wearing kilts, and there's something not quite right by that fiddly diddly dee music. It's not that they're really seeing us as inferior, but they just think we're sort of odd, we're off key. There's something. Essentially, as Basil Fawlty says, we think there's something wrong with you.
Yeah, exactly. Acted, you can go on all day, but the old they were a small nation and they rule the world, or a good part of it. And there's this sort of thing that we're sort of the superior beings, and those are odd little critters, and they are not like us. Somebody said to me one time, a lot of people, "Oh, sure, you English and Irish are not the same." But there's my brother-in-law who lived 40 years in England, says we bloody well are not the same.
Yeah, one of my daughters-in-law, her grandmother is from Shetland, and the time of the Indy referendum for Scotland, I was speaking, God, I hope they make it, and she was saying, well, I don't, I feel a loss, wouldn't be as close a connection as I have at present with Shetland and with Scotland generally. Yeah. I think that I didn't say it here, but I think it displays I'm missing the basic point. And the basic point is England, Scotland, Ireland, Wales are not a combination of four nations equally. Never were.
Never were.
It was a question of one big nation, England, imposing its will on those other nations.
What, I don't
think England quite get that today. Some people
is there 60 million people in England, and what is it, 5 million in Scotland? I don't know many in Wales. Yeah. Now that's dominance. That's not a band of brothers there.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the problem. There are some well-meaning English people who don't quite get that. In fact, this is something that historically is people who have been dominated, and they're now being asked to voluntarily stay in the dungeon. I don't think it's going to work. But anyway, somebody said, what was it? Who was it? Brenton Behan said that no situation is so bad, but the arrival of a policeman can make it worse. I say no situation is so bad, but the arrival of Gordon Brown
can make it worse. Good point.
Okay, let's move on to the drunken English.
Now, there's a natural segue, isn't it?
Well, this is a report. It's in The Guardian today. More than 5% of people under 25 in the UK, well, this is the UK, really means England, reported having sought hospital treatment after getting drunk, compared to a global average of 2%. So more than twice as many young people under 25 were taken to hospital after getting drunk. And they go on and give us further details of this kind of thing. Like 94% of people drank alcohol in England over the previous year. That's a pretty high number, you know.
Absolutely. Jude, you know, there's I know the old stereotype of the Englishman was he'd go into a pub, and I know that when I was growing up, he would make a lager and lime last for an hour while he read his paper and whatever. That has been absolutely shattered by now the more prolific images of basically the lager lout and the sort of football hooligan, and you know the binges. The image. I think, have you ever gone to Spain, Jude? The image of a lot of Spanish, if you even talk to them, is the Englishman of the tattoos and drunk, of the young English, the 1825, and that's it. By the way, I'll use one example. I remember sitting in a bar. This is a great example. Martin, the barman, I always remember his name. He thought originally we were English and was professionally friendly, but not friendly. When we found out we were Irish, he was absolutely naturally friendly. He was actually very nice. And I said, Martin, what made the difference? He says, no respect. And I says, what do you mean by that? He says, a lot of the young English people go click, click, click. He says, no respect. You know, and that was because we're all young and drunk. And by the way, they do have that sort of superior. Like I actually was sitting at a cafe having a cup of coffee one day in Spain, where a guy actually whistled to the waitress, a young girl. No, whistled like he was calling. She went over and says, I am not a dog. You know, so there's that sort of, now that's a stereotyping, and it's very unfair, but there is an image now that it's very unfair to the very many decent English people, but they do have an image problem about drink.
Well, two things on that though, Pat. I think that thing about overconsumption, as you say, lager louts, that by implication says that these are young people, and it is true. Most of the really aggressive drinking, let's say, that you get is with football followers, you know. So anybody, guys from 40 down, 40 to, 17, 18, there is a tendency in those guys to drink a lot, binge drinking, and then aggressiveness that follows on it. Now, having said that, when I was that age, when I started to drink, when I went out for a night's drinking, I went out for a night's drinking. I wasn't fooling around. I wasn't civilized.
No, was I. But I'm just saying, hold on. There's one point. I think you made 5% of people under the age of 25 ended up in hospital. I presume last year or whatever the figures
last year
for drinking. Dude, that's 1 in every 20. Dude, I never ended up in hospital from drinking. Did you?
No, I didn't either.
No.
Just felt awful the next morning.
You had a headache the next day. But and by the way, I don't know too many people have ended up, like when you have to be hospitalized, that's pretty shit. We Irish have very little room for talking, by the way. But I don't think the binge culture is not, there's that English thing, a big group of guys, and they all get pissed. And the football supporters and all that. That seems to be a sort of an under 25 thing. And it's sort of a social phenomenon.
Well, if you stop to think about it, why would people be in hospital? And I think that may well be related to the violence that very often comes with young English, certainly used to be some decades back, fans of particular clubs. There was clashes, bloody clashes.
Absolutely, yeah.
People have been stuffed. Now, that's not to say it's exclusive to them, but certainly alcohol, crowds, violence, that's something I think pretty characteristic of English. And in fact, one of the things about the Irish is I'm talking now about the Republic of Ireland's football followers, is their enormous lack of violence, that they're always just out having a good time. And people always remarked on this and talked about what good ambassadors they were for Ireland.
To boil it down, we're happy drunks.
That's true. I do remember once or twice when I was drinking, getting a bit aggressive with people, but for the great number of times, I would say we were just.
Jude, I don't know anybody with a couple of drinks in them hasn't got aggressive. I never get 2 Irishmen into a politics row when they're drinking, and let me assure you, they can get very aggressive.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to our last story, which is a bit. I'm just trying to get my head around it. The number of people who have died in the China from the coronavirus. What would you say? Under 10,000? Over 20,000? Over 50,000?
Well, and China's population, what, 20, 30,000?
No, 4,635 people have died of coronavirus in China.
Hold on, Jude. I would have me doubts about that. What is it?
Well, I'll go back and check it.
About, I know, but what is it in America? 430,000.
In America, it is. Let me see, 419,000.
Aye, exactly. So I have me doubts about
419,000.
Jude, right, hold on, Jude. Let's back up here. If we give the credit, or whatever the term is, that the COVID virus started out in China and Wuhan, and they're now saying that there are only 4,000 people have died from it in all of China. And what's the population of China? 1 billion plus.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Yeah. So hey, and then America is what, 350, 360 million people, and 400, and they have allegedly a great health system. I know I have my doubts about that as well. But anyway, 419,000 died. Now, Jude, come on, there's something, either A, the Americans have got a very bad system and the rest of the world's got a very bad system, or else that, Jude, there's one final point I suppose I should make. The Chinese are so ruthless. Once they get an outbreak, they just, everything just shuts down and nobody moves.
Well, that's exactly my point. I think that's the reason that their death rate is so low. They clamped down and kept it low from the very beginning, and only when they were sure things were right, they opened up. There isn't any question of them locking down, easing up, locking down again, easing up. Let's face it, Pat, we're nearly a year into this coronavirus pandemic. If we, in the first 3 months, had a very stringent, almost total lockdown, we would be free of the virus now.
I would think you might.
And a lot less people would have died.
Yeah.
You know, it does seem to me, you talk about Sunningdale for slow learners. This is a coronavirus for slow learners, I think.
Well, you know that point you've made, Jude, there that I can't argue with. I do recall very clearly an expert on RT, one of the programs prior to Christmas, stating that he regarded this Christmas break as ridiculous. He says, it's all very well, the government saying you get together with your families and all over Christmas. He says, we're going to pay a hell of a price for that in the new year, and we are. You can't argue. But
I remember the Taoiseach on TV, this is before Christmas, I think now, him saying, oh, well, we have to not agree with NEFIT. They sprang this advice on us to clamp down. They don't have to make decisions about the economy and so on.
Economy,
I just thought, I mean, they spend all their time saying we're going to follow the scientific and medical advice. Then they get it and they don't follow it. Anyway, I mean, you would only have to have a schoolboy's knowledge of how viruses work to know that the best way not to get it is to not be mixing with people.
Exactly.
Right? I mean, you or I could have done that. I could have said, like, let everybody freeze where you are, stay at home. And well, none of this nonsense where we're saying we could call on you to support this effort and so on, and we don't want to make it mandatory and do your bit. Forget it. We don't ask people to do their bit in terms of which side of the road they drive on or wearing a seatbelt or other things like that. So why would we do it in terms of life and death with COVID? I tell you,
I have to agree with that. Look, I have heard recently, and I'm not going to name it because but I've heard there's shebeens not a million miles away from where I'm, and I'm saying to myself, if I know this, surely the Gardaí must know this. So why aren't they being closed down? Why aren't those people being fined? Why aren't the proprietors losing their licenses? I've seen no sign of any publican up before a court and saying your license is suspended or cancelled or whatever the term is, or terminated. No. And Jude, I haven't heard anybody up in court. 3 people yesterday appeared in Letterkenny District Court or wherever it is, or even Derry Court, for running, wherever you want to go. I think there's been a couple of raids around Dublin because they were so blatant, but that's it.
I think the mistake was, as I say, in not locking down sufficiently and they're not making it mandatory. No messing. This is a law. They all the time. The government, it seems to me, almost encouraged people to break the rules. They began talking about lockdown fatigue.
Yeah.
You might as well say seatbelt wearing fatigue. This is too important for that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I sort of agree. But anyway, we should finish on a happy note. I take it you read about the Spanish woman who came back from the dead from COVID.
Yes, that's right. I did. I
forgot her name was Rogelia Blancos, so that means rose white, I presume.
Give us the rest of it. Give us the rest of it.
Well, apparently they all attended her funeral and all the rest, including her husband and all the rest. And then
no, they didn't, Pat. They got it wrong.
No, they couldn't for COVID. No, they couldn't, but they held her funeral and they were all breaking their heart. And she walks back into the hospital where she was 8 days later. They had buried the wrong. It was her. They put the wrong name tag in the hospital.
That's right. So, her husband said he was terribly surprised. He was shocked to see her again.
So I imagine the hospital turned out they said, quote, it was an identification error. Jesus.
My concern was whether the husband was shocked and saddened or whether he was shocked and delighted.
They said, well, usually in the Republic, when they mess up, they say it was a systems error, but here they're saying it was an identification error. But anyway, it's good news for one family.
Aye, nice.
And on that note, we'll leave it.
Always leave them smiling. Okay, Gabe. Thanks
again, Pat. Cheers, bye.
Bye.